Hello traders, it is August 14th and I'm looking at the stock swing trading watch list for the week of August 15th. So this week market conditions are good. I'm willing to take swing trades on the long side if any trigger and if the setups are good. And this week looking at contraction patterns and double consolidations. Double consolidations, one that don't pop up as often, and I don't put on the watch list as much, usually just because there's so many contraction patterns. We'll talk a little bit down here. I ran the scan. There were 174 stocks on the US list, 35 on the Canadian. These are the criteria I used. And I mentioned here just not many contraction patterns. And the reason is, if we look at the S&P 500, it's basically gone straight up since mid-July. Contraction patterns are sideways patterns where the price is mostly moving sideways. It's getting in a smaller and smaller range. And since most stocks, the S&P 500 representative of this, and all the indexes, basically all the indexes have gone straight up. So not a lot of stocks are moving sideways at the moment. So not a lot of contraction patterns, but that doesn't mean there's no trading opportunities. We still have other patterns we can trade. Double consolidations are one of them. And they occur after a pullback. And this is covered in the or in the Complete Method Stock Swing Trading course. I also have an article on it if you just click on that link there. So there's a few of these on the list as well. So let's start going through that list. Also a couple bottoming patterns, so we'll talk about that. Instead of, so a contraction pattern, there's a price rise and then we get a sideways movement. A bottoming pattern, we have a small drop and then there's a triangle pattern. And we still want that stock to be in an overall uptrend and overall conditions to be good. So it's a slight variation on the normal contraction pattern that we trade, but they can be quite useful as well. Bottoming contractions will also often look like a rounded bottom. Another pattern I like. So let's go through the list. OVV, forming a double consolidation. This is actually a very clean one. We can see we had a rally up. We've had a pullback. Nice little consolidation there, moving several days sideways. We've had the pop up. So this one's not fully formed yet. We need at least one more day in that consolidation. Then we're looking to trade the upside breakout if it occurs. CLR, a little less of a clean one. If I delete these boxes, you can see pretty similar to OVV. We had the pop up here, then we had a day down here, and then 2 days up here. So the overall idea of the pattern is there, but it's not the nice tight consolidations like we had on OVV. This first one's a little bit spread out. But the point of this pattern is that we have a move up off a low, consolidate, and then move up again, consolidate. And this is usually the point where if this was to continue to the downside, it would usually break to the downside then. So the overall context of the pattern is correct in that we've had a move up, a little pause, then we had another move up. Now if we get a breakout from this consolidation here, that'd be a great thing. But again, we need one more day and then the breakout. HNRG. So this is the contraction I'm looking at here. So we had a drop, a move up, back to the highs, drop, the prior swing high. This one, I'm not including this original because it's too big. It's just too ugly. Like what happened over here, we had this big drop, the price moves sideways. So it was more this pattern that was of interest. Same with over here. So this one just a bit too big. This one needs to consolidate. So right now, we need a couple days going sideways and then the breakout. EQT, very similar pattern to what we had with CLR. Off the low here. Little pop up, first day. Second day is a little bit higher. Second day drops back. So this one, overall, moving in the same general area. But again, not that like perfect, nice sideways consolidation. But again, overall context is pretty good. And again, we're waiting for another day of sideways movement and then the breakout. Pretty much carbon copy pattern here. Trade over there that didn't trigger, it didn't work out. You can see that, right? We have the 3 days there. This is going back a ways. 3-day pattern. 1, 2, 3 days waiting for the breakout there, and it just never materialized. And so this same thing could happen over here. We are waiting for 3 days of sideways movement. Once again, this first consolidation, you know, a little bit not great, but overall the prices stayed in that general area. It's not the nice sideways, you know, like here's nice right here. 3 days moving sideways. 1, 2, 3. Now that's a nice little consolidation there. So this one, not quite as nice, but overall moving sideways. Again, like the other one, context is pretty good. We're moving up overall. You know, started to move this, you know, little trend here. And we need one more day and then the breakout. Air. This one I put just to kind of see how it does. I have traded some of these before on a later move. So we basically had one consolidation here, another one. Now we're in our third consolidation. So this one's getting pretty late coming off this low here. I kept it on the list because of this. There's a fair bit of space even just to get to the prior high. Looking at about 11-12% just to get up to that prior high. So there is a bit of room, and this is a pretty small, tight consolidation. Nice, only about 2.3%. So risk reward wise, even with a target near that prior high, you know, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 to 1, depending on exactly where your levels went. So yeah, just eyeballing it here, you're looking at about 3.5, 4 to 1. So that was what interested me about that, even though this, is getting a little bit late. Better entry point would have been back here in this area. Unfortunately, there was a little gap up there, so may have not got filled, but could have got filled on this day. But I wasn't really looking for these patterns too much recently. As I mentioned, I usually look more for contraction patterns. I just happened to notice this week not many contraction patterns, so I started looking for double consolidations. This one's a double consolidation and a contraction pattern. So we had earnings on this day, and earnings, as we know, can often cause, you know, a big price bar. So I'm not too concerned about that price bar. What I'm looking at more is this high, this high, this high. We're getting that, you know, squeezed in, kind of represented by these lines here. And we have our consolidation near the top. So this could have been our potential breakout here. Right, we had moved up near the top of the pattern. So actually an entry point could have occurred on August 9th. This is basically a second chance entry point based on a double consolidation. So another possible entry there if the price breaks above that high of that consolidation. That was ARGX. Moving to the Canadian stocks. We've already looked at this one, but we'll look at the Canadian version. Same thing as the US one. Double consolidation. Just waiting for it to fully form. Leo. Debated taking this one off, but kept it on. It's a bit big. We have this starts out with a 28-29% drop. And we haven't had any uptrends, so we don't have much to compare it to. But if we go back in time a bit, we can see we've had some other pretty big drops, but just not as big as the one we have now. So what I'm looking for is how big of a drop can a stock handle? Because different stocks can handle different size drops. Some are just volatile, and they have 30% drops all the time and then rally 100% after that. So we want to measure out this one. about 28%. So that's about in the area where we are now. All these other ones a bit smaller, 24. And then ultimately, was the price able to rally off of these points? So this, this didn't really form a nice contraction pattern, but still we can look at the size of the waves, 20. So at this point here, this first drop, big drop, a little bit smaller drop on the next one, a bit of a consolidation there, probably maybe not a pattern we would have traded, but just to give us an idea. So yeah, this guy, about 28%. And what did I say we were at over here? Yeah, about 29% area. So this is on the much bigger end of the kind of movement we've seen. So my question always with a big pattern is, will this resume to the upside? Or after a big drop, sometimes the market needs time to digest and we end up drifting sideways or being really choppy for a while. Then we form a tight pattern and get the breakout. So this one, I'll watch and see. If it forms a really nice tight consolidation, then we have a fair bit of room even just up to this prior high. So yeah, nice tight consolidation. Who knows? Maybe I'd be interested in this one. It's also a penny stock, not a ton of volume, lower price, so shares might be a little tougher to get. So it's a meh pattern, but I'll keep it on there just to see how it goes. But this one, yeah, I was on the verge of crossing this one out, just so you know, so more than likely won't be a trade. Spartan Delta, pretty nice pattern. This is what I call a bottoming contraction. Was there another one that I wrote here? Oh yeah, OVV, also a bottoming. Let's go back to that one just for a second. So this one also a bottoming triangle or bottoming contraction. In the sense we have our first drop, which is pretty big. We have a move up. Second drop, pretty small. What does that form? Triangle. And this is a little bit different than the contraction patterns we usually see, which are more like this, where we have a move up, then a contraction. This is a move down, then a contraction. But overall, we have nice movement to the upside overall. And what I like about this pattern is that it also is a rounded bottom quite often. Not all the time. It can depend a little bit on how the waves formed. But rounded bottoms, this was covered in a course I did many years ago, and I'll add it back into the complete method swing trading course eventually when I have a bit of time. But the pattern is basically this. You're dropping, and then you have a move above a prior swing high. So this is basically a shift in trend, a short-term shift right there. Right? We have a higher swing high. Downtrends are lower swing lows, lower swing highs. Now we have a lower swing low here, but we have a higher swing high here. That downtrend is in question, so we are waiting for a higher swing high. We had one here, and we know that once the price starts shifting back up. So we don't just buy as it's dropping. We wait till we see some price action evidence here. So like this consolidation. So that'd be more the rounded bottom way to trade it. For a double consolidation, we're just waiting for one more price bar, as we talked about, and the break higher. And the same thing's happening in Spartan Delta. Big drop, another big drop, and then we have a move up that matches. So we have we're no longer in that clearly defined downtrend because we've had this move up which erased the drops. And so on this one, we're just waiting for a contraction. No double consolidation yet. We haven't had any consolidation, so we're just waiting for the price to move sideways another day or two, and then if it breaks higher, it's perfect. So that is the swing trading watch list. The list is there, and yeah, that is the stock list for this week. So we'll see if a few of them trigger. Ultimately, that's the thing. Right now they're setting up. They need to finish setting up if they aren't fully formed. and they still need to then break above that consolidation or that trigger area that I mentioned in order to get into a trade. At that point, we also want to look at our risk reward. So just because a pattern triggers, we might have 5 on this list that trigger. Maybe we can't take all of them. You have to go through, look at your risk reward, how far the price typically moves compared to the stop loss you're going to need to use for that consolidation. And yeah, then you're going to compare it based on those, maybe the strength of the trend. So it's not just, oh, it triggered, I'm jumping in. Do a bit of comparative analysis. See which ones you like the best and go from there. So until next week, happy trading.